Welcome to today's shows on Knives or Words, and today we'll be taking a deep dive into the war market, why there's so much war going on right now, and how I've been able to take a step back from the distractions, the narratives, and the media, and probably we should actually see it for what it is behind the curtains. And maybe there's really more to it than what the media narrative tends to be telling us. And all of this, we'll be taking a deep dive, like I said, and we'll see if this really makes sense. All right, so let's get to it. As if there are not enough wars in the world, okay? Israel decided to bomb Turkish airbase in Syria, and it has gone really crazy in the international face of things. And why? Israel said it believed that intelligence gathered shows that, you know, Syria is going against the security status quo that it has with Israel by allowing allies like Turkey to mount a base in Syria. And Syria said, well, we don't want a problem with Israel. Whatever base you found there, air base you found at our northern border is for training, specifically for training. We're allowing Turkish military training to train our own military force, because Syria is trying to rebuild. Okay, so we're just trying to train our military people. And the national or international bodies right now are actually, uh, chastised Israel for, that kind of reckless thing to do, and stating it was a reckless thing to do if it had not confirmed really that it was a breach of its security uh, along the southern or northern border of Syria, okay, that it shares with Syria. Now, that tugged at me. There's something about the entire story between Turkey, Syria, and Israel that tugged at me. And as much as the media paints the narrative that, oh, we don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons. Russia wants to, take advantage of Ukraine. Ukraine needs NATO's assistance to fight Russia. China is staying neutral. Uh, you know, this and that, and this and that. And they have successfully pulled the wool across our eyes. And this is actually not the first time, okay, that such is happening in the world. Okay, this is wars are being fought, but this seems to be like common now with Western powers, world powers, getting allies and then picking another country to go to battle with for no just cause. Now, let me start with how the normal human rationale will define military exercise or military force. They are tagged as defensive force a country uses against security threats. Okay, so in a situation where a country, an independent country, agrees with another country to come to its borders, create an air base, whether it is for military training or not, it agreed to it, a country. And another country somewhere says, no, you don't have the right to allow another country plant an air base or launch an air base in your country because that particular part shares a border with my country. No military threat has been posed to you whatsoever. There is nothing lodged at you, even by mistake, at any point. One country minding its military business, another country trying to assist as requested, and you just feel like you can go offensive on them. And I'm talking about Israel here. And so that tugged at me. And so I began to look at the dynamics of the wars in recent times. Let's start with the Russia-Ukraine war. Russia embarked on a war with Ukraine in 2022, and the war was about, I think, resources. Russia wanted to take over resources and this and that, and it was said, negotiations has gone between both presidents of both countries, and they were unable to come to agreeable terms on how to work things out, even though previous administrations have actually allowed Russia to do what it wanted. And so this administration said no. And going forcefully to take from Ukraine. Now, Russia going forcefully to take from Ukraine. Ukraine definitely mounted a sense of defense. Ukraine at that time was not officially a NATO member. Okay. So it was during the course of the war that it became official that Ukraine was part of NATO. They were just trying to live. Oh, and I think part of what instigated Russia to do that was because, Russia was saying, I don't want NATO planting their warships or whatnot around the Russian borders. I'm not comfortable with it. Russia saying to Ukraine, I'm not comfortable with it. And Russia saying that Ukraine being a part of NATO is going to empower Ukraine against Russia was the reason Russia quickly moved on Ukraine. Okay. So, probably who knows if Russia has always wanted to go to war with the European nations. Now, before I jump the gun, what does this mean? Okay. So the next war after that was the US-Iranian war. And that is still ongoing. Yeah. And now the Turkish war. At least those are the global wars that we know of right now. There are other little wars here and there, but these are the global ones we know about. And so I began to do the research about why most countries are going on the offensive with military defense. Just because you don't like something, America does not like that Iran has uranium en masse and decided to take it upon itself, not the United Nations, not, all the organizations of the world that could step in. United States decided to take it on itself to say, no, we will check you. You can't have uranium in that amount, that excessive amount. You have to give it up. You give it up. And Iran says, well, I don't have the excess uranium that you're claiming that I have. The ones I have are for studies, okay? Research, scientific studies. But America decided to send drones anyway. And kaboom, the war started. I don't like that you are joining NATO, and it does not make me comfortable. I just don't like it. Kaboom! The war between Russia and Ukraine. And now the same pattern between Israel and Syria. And I said, there is more to this than what meets the eyes. So I began to research, and I came to the point where there's something called the military industrial complex. Okay. Now, before I continue, I am a Nigerian, and I ventured into giving details of geopolitical analysis of events geographically, internationally, and even nationally to my Nigerian brothers and sisters. Not because of anything aside being aware of the threats that surround you, being aware of the benefits that surround you, being aware of the positions to take, and also being of a consciousness of knowledge of events that are happening around you. That means you know what is going on, or at least you have the reservoir of knowledge of what is going on. You are not just there, you know, uh, castigating the sitting president of Nigeria or Dangote refinery for not bringing the price of oil down, even though, you know, it's being refined in the country now. There are always something behind the play to these things, and that is what I bring on this channel, giving you the details of why those things have come to be, okay, or at least giving you a deep dive of what I've been able to gather that has caused that. Okay, so in this situation that I'm bringing to the video today that I'm discussing, helps us to understand why we have the level of insurgents in Nigeria, where it has stemmed from, or possibly where it is stemming from. Okay, so there is something called the military industrial complex. Okay, now what is the definition of this? Okay, here we go. The military industrial complex is the powerful interconnected relationship that exists between a nation's military establishment, its political government, and the private corporations that manufacture weapons and military technology. It is the powerful interconnected relationship existing between a nation's military establishments, its political governments, and the private corporations that manufacture weapons and military technology. So it is safe to say that nations of the world have a military industry that benefits in an economic manner, because the military establishment of that nation, its political government, and then private corporations that manufacture. So money is coming into play here. Okay. Now let's simplify it. Companies, corporations that manufacture military technologies sell to its government, and the government acquire these technologies or arsenals or weapons to its military establishment. All right. Now, when they do this, it does not make sense that they continue to acquire military technologies, military weapons, and not use them. And so, military equipment, technologies becomes assets in the market. All right. So, the research continued. And I asked, who or what country, one, does Iran get its weapon from? Iran gets its weapon from North Korea, China, and Russia. Now, where does Russia get its weapon from? Russia gets its weapons from China and North Korea. Okay? And in return, Russia supplies China and North Korea. Okay, Russia gets military supplies from China and North Korea. North Korea supplies rocket launchers and missiles to Russia. China supplies drones, military drones. And Russia, in turn, supplies China and North Korea with naval warships. Okay? So, who or what country is supplying the United States with military equipment, technologies, weapons? Call it whatever. South Korea. United States then supplies European nations with weapons. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the war is not about moral conduct of nations or security breaches. The war is just an excuse to sell weapons across the world. Now, one can ask, how did it deteriorate, or how did it come to be that weapons are what they have to sell, to what is the economic implication of selling weapons? Okay, I once heard somewhere that the dirt of the world, uh, the illegal businesses, corporations, or is being funded. I mean, at what funds the economy of the world? And I'm tending towards believing that, because for money to move around, it must start from somewhere. And I've said this in my past videos, nations across the world are broke now because they spend more than they produce. And they've not made good decisions with their treasuries, with their money. Okay? And from inception, the birth of money when it comes to the global market has had a key link from inception. How it came to be, removing gold, money, dollar from gold standard, affecting the nations, how it even came to be that nations began to owe the United States, blah, 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 blah. If you go through my other videos, you'll see them on this channel. Okay, so how it affects us in Nigeria, in Africa. So when these supplies are being made, it's a known thing on the digital media how America's weapons have been found in the hands of the ISIS terrorist faction, okay, and in Asia. So they don't really care about whose hands are laid. I mean, who gets these weapons. So Iran gets weapons from China, Russia, North Korea, and it is a known fact that Iran has external fractions that fight as proxies in its neighboring countries that is trying to suppress or overthrow or whatever. We have the Lebanese Hezbollah, we have the Palestinian Hamas, we have the Houthis of Yemen. Okay, these are all Iranian factions within Asia, within the Gulf states. Okay, so these factions now, they do other things. Okay, for Nigeria, we know of Boko Haram, we know of Fulani headsmen now. Okay, these external factions of Iran, Iraq also have subordinates. Also have subordinates that answers to them, and that's why we have the likes of the ISWAPs, the Fulani headsmen, the Boko Haram back then, and all these people lay their hands on guns, on weapons. And then what happens? It's a market where human trafficking is promoted, illegal mining is promoted, political influence is promoted, name it. Okay? Just by the sales of weapons. Whoever is into human trafficking, drug trafficking, they have these arsenals to use to protect themselves, to carry out these missions. Now in Nigeria, okay, let's focus now to Nigeria. The Fulani headsmen or the Boko Haram or the insurgents, because we don't even know the name they go by right now, they kidnap people, ask for ransoms. The money is being pumped back. The money they get for ransoms have been, the money they get from the ransom is being pumped back to the economy of the world. Okay? They might decide to open businesses, run corporations to make this money now legal. All right? Of course, the people that sell them these guns get money from them as well, but they also have families that end up buying things from the markets. They go to make their hair, they buy properties. Now you see how it trickles down from Russia, from China, from North Korea, from South Korea, from the United European nations. How this trickles down. Because the resources of nations, apart from the fact that nations don't even care to be productive anymore now, they just want to spend money and keep spending money. And that gives room to them spending more than what the resources of those countries can carry. And so the door is opened to illegal means of making money by countries. But they don't say it's illegal. How is it normal to sell warships to China that is not fighting any war? How is it legal? How does it make any sense? Yeah, I know from, the surface of things, it's like, oh, a country can actually, just want to store up its arsenals. But storing up is one thing. Now, selling it is another thing. Because what I, in a normal, in a rational sense, if one country is into producing and making military weapons, other countries buy to keep for keeps. Right? Now, the one that is keeping has now decided to start selling. So it is no longer a situation of defense. It is now a situation of economy. Now, the ones we've stored, if we sell them, we can make some money. And everybody sees it as a market to make money. So that is why the bombs will not land in our front yard. It will not land on the street of Lagos. The guns will not, when they say the missiles are being thrown from, they are going to throw missiles at airports. They are not going to throw missiles in the town sketch or in the middle of Iran, where there is a lot of population. It is a threat of one country to another country that has nothing to do with its people. So probably part of the agreement is, no life is being lost. You have to respect the lives of the people in this country. Now, when it trickles down to the factions, of course, people get impacted here or there. But that's it. Now, this discovery might be boring. You might have known about it, okay? But I don't want us to see it as something that has come to change the emotional landscape for people. When you hear, oh, Iran is fighting the United States, Israel is throwing missiles at this is bombing this is doing that. They know why they're doing all that. How it comes to shape the landscape of the world is the formation of allies. Okay? Countries are no longer lying to themselves. They're no longer smiling through the teeth. Okay? Everybody has picked a side. Ukraine has picked a side with the European nations. European nations have picked a side with the United States. China and Russia have picked their own side. And Iran seems to be going alongside and working alongside with this other party now. So there are two sides to the world power now. And they are fighting each other tooth and nail. Seriously fighting each other to be the next world power. And so whatever line you fall to, now I'm talking about China wants to be a world power against America, the United States, all right? And China has its own allies. America wants to remain the world power, and America has its own allies. Now, the benefit with America is the global market. Dollar is being spent by almost all nations of the world, even including this other side. Okay? And because it has the global market, China is trying to find a stance where it cripples that market. And so when it funds wars, supplies weapons to adversaries against the United States, it cripples the United States economy. Because the United States has to fight war, right? And as I'm talking to you today, the United States debt has risen to $40 trillion and still reading. And on top of all that, nobody wants to buy Americans, the dollar bonds, the bond market, America's bond market. Nobody wants to buy. And so the yield is off the chart. Okay? Saying that if you buy, we will give you 4% of what we earn when we put this money to use. But people are not trusting the dollar anymore. Okay? Because of how it has managed its economy over the past couple of years now, even before 2020. I think it started from 2008. It has mismanaged funds, refused to produce, opened its market to receive productions, and when it opened its market for bonds to be bought, foreign countries also bought these bonds. Okay? And when they formed an alliance against America now, they are selling off these bonds and they are not buying it back. And China is acquiring gold like no man's business. And now America is singing like a carousel. We have gold too. We just went to check our Fort Knox and we have gold. And the gold is sitting there. So in case you intend to go back to gold with your other allies, we are going to be a force for you to contend with. So for now, nobody is winning the war between China and the United States. And the reason why China is not so much of a match for United States is because China wants to keep this PR I don't even know why it's trying to, for the world that, we are the ones, we just want to make money and we just want to enrich other nations. And, see America fighting everybody, bullying everybody. I'm not partisan to any of these sides, okay? Our job as people is to capitalize on our advantages between the two nations at loggerheads right now. Here, capitalize, position, reshuffle, be here's 10 toes down, knowing exactly what is happening per time and how to move around the market. If you are not an investor, I don't if you work, you earn your salaries, you know it does not suffice. At this age and time, you have to be an heavy investor to get through things because the economy of the world is in shambles. Investing in the right things is what helps you to manage and balance the finances through time and actually have something to leave behind for your family. Okay, so I don't know if I've been able to actually do justice to explaining the military industrial complex to you and how it affects nations of the world and narrowing it down to how it affects us as Nigerians. Okay, there are other factors too that contribute. It's not the only thing. Okay, the military industrial complex is not the only thing on or only card being played by nations on the table. Okay, I'm just saying that don't be swayed by the media narrative of there's a country in the right, country in the wrong. This is the perception of China, or this is the perception of uh, Iran, United States. It does not really matter because the bigger picture for these nations is economical benefits. All right. If the war does not have any form of benefit, they won't go into it in the first place. They would rather be diplomatic, sit down and iron it out and talk about it. But how nations are just getting up and just going to war without repercussion, without thinking of the repercussions or the consequences it brings on them, it's a rising, it's questionable. Okay, and so that's what I will be talking on the show or on the video today. And if you have any questions, please drop it in the comment section. If you want to actually have an understanding or more understanding about the things I talk about on the channel, if you have an impending question that you intend that I research on, that I come here to talk to you about, I'm glad and I'll be willing to do that. What is important to me is that, the average masses have clear understanding of things that are going on. The food you are buying in the markets, in the grocery stores, are not just expensive for no reason. That your nation is mismanaging funds is not for no reason. That your country does not have a refinery is not for nothing. That Dangote is selling and pricing its petroleum or crude oil in dollars is not out of nothing. The banking systems in Nigeria is changing is not for nothing. That is taxation and um, giving multi-directional or monodirectional flow of funds being built and structured right now in Nigeria is not for nothing, and I don't even know if you know about it. Please go through my previous videos. I might sound boring, maybe because people are hardly watching these videos, but they are educative, informative, and it gives you 2 steps ahead of the curves. Please, please, and please. And it does not have to be just my channel or my videos. Get to know more about the world, the nations, and what they are doing part time. This private corporations and bureaucratic, jargons. So I don't know how else, because these are the times that we need to be conscious, be awake, and be set for the changes that are coming. And they've actually started. And you can't be caught off guard. You shouldn't be caught off guard. And that brings me to the conclusion of today's video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.